All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. It is Monday, September 12th, 10:05 on the East Coast. Welcome to ASAP in the morning. I am joined this morning by Ray and Chris. Morning, boys. How we doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Great, man. We're week one of the NFL season. So many great games and great upsets. It was a great way to kick off the NFL season. Chris, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing? We're doing a little better if the Colts knew how to play some football and didn't tie. But other than that, it's a pretty good weekend.
Yeah, the Indianapolis Colts, one of the many surprises in week one, tying the Houston Texans. And we're going to get into all that in just a few minutes. Let us know where you're watching from this morning. Hit us up in the comments. We'll answer some questions throughout the show. And in order to be caught up on everything, all sports, all plays, I know Ray has Jags Nation here on ASAP Network. Chris does it all. He's got Afternoon Blitz. He's got Easy Money. He's got Horseshoe Talk, all here on All Sports, All Plays Network. But in order to find all of that great content throughout the entire week, you got to be following All Sports, All Plays on all platforms. We are live this morning on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So make sure if you're watching on any of those platforms, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the share buttons. All that helps out each show and the network. You can find us on YouTube, search ASAP Sports Network. On Twitter, you can find us at ASAP Network 1, Facebook at All Sports All Plays, and on Twitch at ASAP Network. Well, one of the big storylines coming into this Monday morning happened last night, Sunday Night Football, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. Man, that was kind of a snooze of a game from everything that everybody was watching. But really the big story coming out of that is Dak Prescott went down in the fourth quarter with a right thumb injury. And some news came out this morning from Adam Schefter. 6 to 8 weeks. He's out. So what did you guys have a chance to watch the game last night? What were your thoughts on, how the Bucs look, how the Cowboys looked, and what does this mean for Dak Prescott and the Cowboys moving forward?
Well, to me, I watched the game while I was doing my Jags Nation because it was on during the game. He got hurt and stuff. When they put the other quarterback in Rush in there, he didn't very impress me none. The Cowboys are going to be in trouble. They are going to be in trouble if they can't go out and get a veteran quarterback to come in that 6 to 8 week time frame, because Rush is not the answer for the Cowboys right now because he overthrew the ball. He looked terrible. I mean, he tried to run from a rush, and they got to him. But the interesting thing, too, I also wanted to look at Tom Brady's mindset because when he missed some of that part of the training camp, we kind of found out why, because news broke that him and his wife is now splitting. I don't know if y'all heard about that, but I just wanted to see how with his mindset. I mean, Brady didn't look too good. He didn't look bad either. He moved the ball. They had Tampa Bay moving the ball down the field in this defense on the Dallas defense. But the Dallas line, man, in that fourth quarter when they brought the new quarterback in, they couldn't even block him. I mean, Tampa Bay was in that backfield all of that fourth quarter time. Every time the dude had a time to set up, he was getting hit or he's running for his life. So, I mean, the Dallas Cowboys got to have to shore up their offensive line, and they got to find a quarterback now since Prescott is out in that 6 to 8 weeks.
Absolutely. And, that was one of the storylines for the Cowboys coming in out of the preseason, rather, is they were on the verge of cutting every quarterback they brought in outside of Dak Prescott. So now that question mark is, you mentioned Cooper Rush. Is he going to be the guy, the stopgap as he was last year, or maybe with as many quarterbacks as are available in the free agency market, is that maybe an option for them to look? Chris, what are your thoughts on where the Cowboys go from here now that Dak Prescott's gone for about 6 to 8 weeks?
Yeah. Well, first off, I agree with Ray on the Cowboys. They got to get an offensive line, or it don't matter who the quarterback is. Even when Prescott was in there, he was struggling because he didn't have a whole lot of time. And then what's interesting is the Cowboys didn't even keep a backup quarterback. With Rush, they have him on the practice squad, and they use that waiver thing where they can bring him up and make him active at the day of the game to use him as a backup. But they officially didn't have a backup because of salary things. Cap, they decided not to keep a backup. Just do that. Now they're going to have to get somebody. I was wondering if maybe we might see him go after and try to make a trade for maybe like a Jimmy G or somebody like that to try to fill in without Dak. But the way that team looked last night, I don't care who the quarterback is. If the offensive line can't play better than that, they're going to get destroyed. And Dallas's defense didn't play terrible. They kept Tampa out of the red zone. That game could have been ugly, real ugly score wise if it wasn't for Dallas's defense in the red zone. Tampa drive the ball down there every time. It seemed like, but they just couldn't get touchdowns. I thought Brady, he didn't look great, but he looked like an above average quarterback. But I think he'll play better as the season goes on. What's scary is that Tampa Bay defense. That Tampa Bay defense looked scary last night. If they play like that, Brady gets going, Tampa's going to be a hard team to beat.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been the strength of Tampa Bay for the last couple years, and even coming into the season, all the offensive line injuries for the Buccaneers. That was a big question mark. Not only is Brady is he going to retire now? Where's his head at? But yeah, you mentioned that offense, if they can get it going, and that defense is going to be the strength that's going to carry them through a lot of games this year, and that's definitely going to be.
Their offensive line didn't play that bad last night. I know it was against the Cowboys. I don't know how good their defensive line is, but Tampa Bay's offensive line done a pretty good job of keeping Brady clean.
Yeah, absolutely. Dallas's defense, they had Micah Parsons, but who's the defensive rookie of the year, but that, they still have, under Dan Quinn, they still have a ways to go, as you can see. But I mean, it was a fairly close game throughout. I don't think the Cowboys were necessarily out of it, at halftime. It was 12-3 at half. So they were still within striking distance, but it was definitely an interesting way to end out the game. Nobody scores in the fourth quarter. Prescott goes down. That's really, now that he's out 6 to 8 weeks. Oh, there he is. Good morning, Damian.
And it wouldn't in the injury when he got hurt. I mean, you saw him hit his hand. He actually hit it twice. But I told him, I was watching it with my dad, and I told him, I hope he didn't break that thumb, because you're gonna be out for a while. But you see that happen with quarterbacks, usually off a helmet. But he hit more of another guy's like forearm and hand.
Now, did you see when he came to the sideline when the trainer went up to him? I'm pretty good at reading lips. He said he broke it. He already knew he broke it when he went over there. He told him straight out that he broke it.
Yeah, Ian Rappaport reported this morning already on NFL Network that it was a clean break. Last night that you mentioned, that's what he saw on the sideline. He mouthing it that he broke it. They said it was a clean break, so not really. I've never, thankfully, broken either of my thumbs, but I can't imagine that recovery is going to be a very smooth one for him, especially on his throwing hand as an NFL quarterback. It's kind of something you need to throw the ball.
Yeah, that's 6 to 8 weeks of training. He's going to have to be in that perfect training, that room after he gets that surgery. Usually after you have break on the thumb, a clean break like that, you're probably not going to do anything holding the ball wise, because you'll be in a cast in the thumb and stuff like that. But usually, probably maybe in the 5th week, they probably remove the cast, put them in like a brace type deal, so he can start gripping the ball and stuff like that. But it's going to be a different grip, because when you break your thumb, after the 6 to 8 weeks, you got to test it out. So, that 6 to 8 weeks is a good barometer, but he comes back in, he'll probably be hesitant until he takes another hit on it.
that's what I was going to say. They say 6 to 8 weeks, but I could very easily see it being longer because you just never know with the hand injury how it's going to heal. And you use your hand so much, it's easy to re-injure it as you're doing the rehab.
Yeah, so kind of looking forward to the Cowboys. If minimum 6 weeks means that he would either be returning around October 23rd against Detroit, or if it went 8 weeks, they have a bye week in week 9. So at the end of that time frame, maybe he waits until after the bye week, week
maybe
10.
after the bye week.
Yeah, maybe after the bye week. They play at Green Bay. But some of the games they have where they're going to miss Prescott, some of them are more difficult than others. Next week they've got the Bengals, then they're at the Giants, home against the Commanders, on the road at the Rams and the Eagles, then they're home against Detroit and Chicago. So realistically, you could, if your offense is even middle of the road, you could sustain, 3 to 4 of those games are wins. But
the question is Rush going to be the quarterback, or is it going to be interesting between now and the next game if they try to go out and get Jimmy G, because he's still sitting the bench at the 49ers right now. So, I mean, I try to figure out what kind of trade I can do with him or some kind of thing to get him. I mean, that's going to be a reliable source. I mean, you got to have a quarterback that can move this team. And last night, that offensive line, I don't care who you have back there, quarterback. You can have a running quarterback. He's still going to run for his life because that offensive line was atrocious in that fourth quarter when they changed quarterbacks. I mean, they got to show up that offensive line. That's something they got to really do. And I agree with Damon there. They could go 1-6 if they don't get a quarterback between now and the next game. And usually when they get another quarterback, he's got to figure out the playbook. So I mean, it's not going to be an instant win when they get that quarterback.
Yeah, you mentioned that Jimmy G is available. Well, based on how the 49ers looked in week 1 with Trey Lance, whether they were playing in a monsoon. Like I've never seen hurricane-like conditions in Chicago like that, but that's kind of what that reminded me of. But it was, that's kind of the question mark now is, are the 49ers going to really pull the trigger on getting rid of Jimmy G, especially seeing as how Trey Lance looked in week 1? Would you guys be worried if you're in the 49ers front office? Would you be worried about Trey Lance after 1 week?
I wouldn't trade Jimmy G to the Cowboys. I would keep him because, like I said, you don't know if he's going to be healthy, if he's going to be hurt, because Trey Lance is more like he might start running, the football. When he runs, he can that's a high risk of injury. A dual quarterback threat is a high dual of injury because he can get hurt on the run, or he sits there in the pocket too long and take one bad hit. Then the 49ers will be in the Cowboy situation. So, I mean, I'll make Jerry Jones sweat. I'll just make him sweat if he's really going to go after him. I'll make him go out and get another quarterback out of the free agent market. I mean, that's going to be the best bet for the Cowboys right now because you don't want to take too much time trying to get Jimmy G, and then they're just horsing you around and trying to make you play with Rush a little bit. So, I mean, they're going to have to go and take that due diligence and see what kind of quarterback they can go out there. I mean, Damian said Josh Rosen. I don't think he's going to be the answer. Cam Newton. We don't know how, what mentally state that Cam Newton's really in. I mean, just it's a lot of stuff they got to think about. The best choice is you can get Cam Newton because Cam Newton is sort of like a Dak Prescott mold. They don't have to change too much on their offense that they got predecessors around Dak Prescott.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw something this morning. Sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm just going to add San Francisco is going to have all the leverage too if they try to make that. Dallas tries to make that trade, then they're going to try to get. They know that, so they're going to try to get as much as they can from Dallas if they want to get Garoppolo. If I'm the 49ers though, after seeing Trey Lance play, I'm not trading Jimmy G because you could very easily be starting Jimmy G here within the next 2 or 3 weeks if that don't improve. I'm not going to be too hard on him because, like you said, it was like a monsoon out there, but. I mean, the other team had to play in that too. So we'll see what he does next game, maybe in more ideal conditions. But if he don't play better, I can see them going back to Garoppolo. I mean, you were a team that was close to the Super Bowl last year, and if if Lance can't keep you up at that level, I could see him trying to make another change. But that's hard now, though, because if you go back to Jimmy G, how do you go back to Lance? What if you go Jimmy G gets in there and ain't playing good? Then it's hard to go back to Trey Lance after you just benched him.
But then again, if you bench Trey Lance, we know he's only his second year.
Yep.
I mean, he's still a young quarterback. I mean, you could bench him, and it's an easy way to justify that. Say, hey, he wasn't ready. We thought he was ready, but he wasn't ready. And then we wanted to sit him behind Jimmy G and let him pick up a little bit more on the playbook, pick up more. Because look, a quarterback, when they come into the NFL, if you're not really a high one in a lifetime quarterback like Peyton Manning, like Tom Brady, you're going to have to. It takes up to about 4 years to get to that level that you should be breaking at. And I mean, we don't know with the 49ers got a short leash on Lance. We don't know that. So, I mean, that's going to have to – I mean, yeah, like you said, if I was the 49ers, I'd be looking at the Cowboys thing and say, hey, look, I want this guy, and this guy for the quarterback. Because you need a quarterback. You do have all the leverage. Try to get something good out of it. Try to get a first-round pick out of it. Try to get a decent, guys that you're missing on your defense or your offense,
I saw this morning. I want to get your guys' thoughts, see if this will work here. Here's a guy that could potentially be available. How about Johnny Manziel?
I thought that's
It looks pretty good in that cowboy white.
If somebody was going to bring Manziel in, it would be Jerry Jones. He would be the owner that would try something like that.
How about I seen rumors around in August that they were that Kaepernick. Somebody said Kaepernick would fit in too. I mean, I don't know. This could be a chance if Jerry Jones wants to be really a risk taker. This could be a chance to bring Kaepernick in.
And Kaepernick's style would kind of fit in with the way Dak plays a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely the way the style that he plays, you'd essentially have to rely a little bit more on the run, with Zeke Elliott, who didn't really look all that good. Really kind of wonder where he's at in the stage of his career now. He's definitely not the same producer he was a few years ago. But there's going to be a lot of question marks about that situation in Dallas.
Say that, but they didn't give Elliott many opportunities last night to really run the ball. And I'll tell you what, they're in trouble at running back. If you're not sticking with Elliott, Pollard can run, but that dude can't pass protect worth crap.
But I mean,
when he was in there in pass protection, he was getting blown up almost every time. He's not near the pass protector that Zeke is.
Damon came back with Nate Peterman.
There's a name we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of quarterbacks that are
Dallas available. Is in trouble.
Yeah, I agree. I think we can all agree on that. Dallas, they've got a really tough stretch ahead of them. We already mentioned the games that they have on their upcoming season, but it's going to be a very unique situation to watch over the next couple of weeks to see how he progresses. But you can see what goes some scores around the NFL from over the weekend, from yesterday. I know this is a question that, Ray, you and I were talking about before the show, but I want to toss this question out to each of you guys. What game yesterday, or even going back to Thursday, what game kind of stood out to you as either a big surprise or a team that massively disappointed?
Well, I'm going to take it back to college because I'm on the college breakdown. Appalachian State and Texas A&M. Kyle Field, one of the toughest places to play in college football. The 12th man, over 10,000 people. More than that, 100,000 people in the stadium. Boone, Appalachian State only plays in front of 6,000 people up in Boone. That's a mindset for a small school, but we know Boone has that mistake when they beat Michigan and in that time to put Boone on the map. We know this is not really a big surprise because Boone he came out and they would play anybody anywhere. He mentioned that twice in this post game thing. But what kind of surprised me was after the game, they went to the airport. I don't know if this could be a Texas A&M ruse or some, but the plane had mechanical problems. They couldn't get back to Boone, North Carolina to celebrate with their fans. They went back to they stayed in the airport most of the night, went back to their hotel room, but the hotel that he was staying at was booked, so they had to sleep in conference rooms and the hallway. And they didn't get back to Boone, North Carolina until almost 8:00 the next morning. So I think the Appalachian State game, it wasn't really a big surprise, but it was a surprise on the stage of Jimbo Fisher letting Texas A&M come in there and beat them. And Kyle Field. That's a big. And on the other mistake on that too is Kyle Field does not host game day next week. Boone, North Carolina hosts game day next week.
There is that story floating around that one of the producers was made a bet that if App State beats Texas A&M, that they'll do game day in Boone, North Carolina next week, and that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
Tell you what, if App State defense can step up, they're going to be a tough team to beat with that offense they have.
Yeah,
I
mean, the defense showed up. I mean, their defense.
Yeah, that game you did, but the game before they gave up like 60 points, 60-something points in North Carolina.
Yeah, that's my team, North Carolina. You know, I'm a Tar Heel. I'm a running Tar Heel fan, so I was happy that game. I didn't care about the game. You know, I like offense too. I like defense. I like offense, and that game had no defense, but a lot of offense.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And App State, you know what a rise that they've had. They were one of the top teams in FCS, even leading up to that upset of Michigan so many years ago, and then kind of gradually getting into FBS. They're Division 1A essentially is, and then they move into the Sun Belt Conference. Now the Sun Belt had a great weekend. You had App State. You had who was the other big upset?
Marshall
was one, and then there's another one, but about 20 minutes ago. But yeah, so that's App State. That team. I looked at the rest of their schedule. Those were the two big games they had. Now they get into their conference. They get into a few others. So there is a potential that if they if they win out and go 11-1, they could find themselves in the top 25. But I found something very interesting. Kind of scrolling through Twitter last night is Kevin Sumlin, the guy that Texas A&M, was throwing to the mobs, has a better record than Jimbo Fisher through the same amount of games. Jimbo Fisher has one more loss.
Yeah, but the key thing is that Jimbo Fisher did win a national championship at Florida State. That's the only key thing that he has for his resume. But he also has the mystique of him and Nick Saban getting into it. So I mean, that's the big pressure right there. But then again, Alabama didn't look good either against Texas. And the Texas quarterback is out for 6 to 8 weeks, the starting quarterback, but the backup quarterback came in and moved the team well and then in the questionable call in the end zone, was that a targeting? Was that? I went back and looked at that video, and there was no way that should have been called any kind of foul, any kind of targeting, any kind of thing. They do hit him nice and clean, no helmet to helmet, no nothing, and they call it targeting on the play. But then they went to review it and found out it wasn't targeting, but they called it incomplete pass.
Yeah, and so looking at it, they actually at first was it a safety? Was it targeting? I'm glad they went through and reviewed it because it shows it wasn't a safety because he was outside the tackle box, and the fact that it did deflect off a defender as soon as he threw it. Deflected, so that negates any intentional grounding, and there was no targeting. So I'm glad they got that call right. But looking through that game, Alabama, Texas, that was one of the big surprises to me this weekend because of the way Bama has that prestige. Texas, are they back? Are they not back? But Bama hasn't played a true road game non-conference in a long time. So and you could tell that showed. But Texas, their thing is they've got 3 red zone trips, and they I think got 2 field goals out of it. That's what was their downfall. They only got a field goal with just under 2 minutes to go, and gave Bryce Young the opportunity to go down and essentially have a Heisman moment for his season. And, Bama comes out with the 20-19 win. And I know a lot of people were hoping, fingers crossed, that Bama goes down and puts a huge wrench into the top 25, but didn't happen. But I think Texas now, even in the loss, they rise to 21 in the rankings that came out yesterday. Not bad for Texas and Steve Sarkisian.
And Georgia jumps Alabama as number 1.
Yeah, I was a little surprised.
Crazy Saturday. What was it? Six top 20 teams lost.
And it was so bad about it is when Florida beat Utah, they put Florida from non-ranked all the way to number 12. And then they come back and lost to Kentucky. And then Richardson throws an interception that was the most easiest interception. He looked like he was the wide receiver he was throwing it to. That wide receiver took off down the field, and he threw about 5 or 6 yards behind. The dude turns around. The corner turns around, can locate the ball. The easiest pick of his whole college career right there.
Yeah, that was one thing I've been saying the last week. We talked about the top 25 rankings, and I don't know what the AP voters are doing, because when Florida beats Utah, okay, Florida's coming off a 6-win season. Florida beats Utah at home. Yes, it's a top 10 win, but to vault them all the way to 12, and now the following week they lose to Kentucky. Kentucky's number 20. They jump all the way to, I think, 9. The SEC bias is real in the AP voters, because there's no way either one of those teams that you can convince me are top 12 teams in the country. There's no way.
I think Kentucky is probably more in the 11 through 20 range than they are in the top 10 right now. But then again, you got to give your hats off to Mark Stoops. He's the all-time winningest Kentucky football coach. Now he beat Paul Bryant after that win against Florida. So, I mean, that's 2 consecutive wins. They couldn't beat Florida in 31 years. That's 2 consecutive wins that they have over Florida in the last 2 years now.
Yeah, absolutely. In one of the games, Nate, good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning. He was completely shocked about BYU winning over Baylor.
2 overtimes?
Yeah, yep. went into a couple overtimes. Let me try to find it.
It's a pretty good game. I watched a little bit of it. They went a couple overtimes. I
watched it.
BYU beat them.
Yeah, I watched it to the point where, because I had to be at church, I had to get up at 4:30 to go open the church up and stuff on Sunday, so I couldn't stay up and watch all that game. So I watched all the way up to a certain point where Baylor was at the top of the game winning, but then BYU looked good too. I mean, both teams really looked good in that game. And when I woke up and seeing them going in overtimes, that was probably a good, turned out to be a good game at the end. But I mean, BYU, I don't see a surprise, because they're going into the Big 12 next year.
Yeah, BYU is a really tough place to play. They have a really wild environment there. They've had a few upsets at home, but even the fact that in the third quarter, through the third quarter, BYU was up 20-13, and Baylor had to come back, and they scored with about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter to tie it. And then we get into overtime. But so, I mean, that kind of tells you, I think, that the Big 12 teams like the Baylors and stuff, it's not as powerful of a conference, or is that maybe just BYU is that much better this year?
Now, BYU to me they're confident. They're a confident team. They've been a confident team for the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, they had Wilson there. Then they got this guy here. He's moving the team now. I mean, BYU has always been that team that will pull up an upset here and there, because they got a good running game. They got a good offensive line. They got a good defensive line. They play fundamental football. They don't make too many mistakes that cost them the game. And Baylor, I mean, to me, I think Baylor was overrated. I don't think they were the number 9 ranked team in the nation myself early in this preseason. I think they had a lot of issues last year that they have to overcome this year. And to me, I think this just shows that they weren't ready for that top 10 ranking that they had in preseason. I think I think they'll get better as the season move along. I like the coach, the former LSU defensive coordinator. I like the way he got the team, from all the turmoil that Baylor had leading up to when he got hired, and now turning I like their tradition. The students running into the stadium trying to get their seats. I have a friend back home that went to Baylor, and he told me, that was the most funnest thing he ever did is get there early in the morning. Yes, they get there at 6 a.m. in the morning before game time, and they line up and they try to run you over to try to get the best seat.
So it's just like general admission seating for the students, first come, first serve, basically.
First come, first serve, and if you can run across the field, because they have to go across the field to the student section. They typically, he said that they allow about 120 to almost 200 students line up in the morning. They cut it off at a certain time, and then it's a free fall. Every student gets a seat, but it's a free fall to get that front row. They're up close seating and stuff like that. But to me, I think Baylor has a chance to be a good team, but they just ran into BYU. But at home, like you said, it's tough to play up in BYU.
Yeah, that student section, that crowd, they've caused some havoc for a few different programs over the last few years. One of the really fun games to watch is whenever BYU plays Utah, because those two get after it. But now for BYU next week, they've got Oregon in Eugene. That's Oregon got a win this last week. They're back in the top 25. That game's going to be on, I think, Saturday at 3:30 on Fox. That I'm a little intrigued by that game. But BYU's got that game. They play Notre Dame in a couple weeks, and we'll touch on them in just a second. But then they play number 10 Arkansas the following week. They've got a few games against Power 5 conference teams this season. So the possibility is if they can run at least undefeated up until they play Arkansas, that would be a very intriguing top 10 matchup, assuming Arkansas stands pat as well.
Yeah, but you talk about the Oregon game. I see this could be a two thing. I see that BYU is more physical than Oregon. Bo Nix can't handle a physical defense like what he did against Georgia. I'm not saying BYU is a Georgia type defense type deal, but they are physical. Bo Nix has trouble with physical defense. He had trouble in the SEC. They ran him out of Auburn. He couldn't meet up to the stat of his dad, the legend of his dad there, and so I'm glad he transferred out and tried to go to another school. But Oregon, Oregon's never been a finesse. Oregon's more a finesse school than a physical. I know Linden is the former defensive coordinator for Georgia. I know he's trying to change the culture to make it strong, but he still got the players from Cristobal there. Some of the players, and then he had a lot of transfer out. They had to start running back. Vernon, he's now at USC. They had a lot of people transfer out of there that didn't want to play for Landon. So now he's got to build. It's going to take time for him to build his culture at Oregon and what Oregon is going to be. But then you have to turn a finesse school, a quick school into a finesse team, into a physical team, and that's kind of hard.
Yeah, it's really, really tough to make that transition. But with the college football rankings out yesterday, top 4, you mentioned Georgia took over. Oregon's back in the top 25. But one of the big schools you just touched on, USC, they had a big win at Stanford this weekend. And it's something we've talked about in the morning show last week, where USC has that potential to be that team that's not from the SEC or not from the Big Ten to make the college football playoff, especially, you've got Lincoln Riley that went out from Oklahoma to USC. They had a big win, and that's their first step. I think that's a demon that they needed to exercise. At Stanford is always a tough game for USC. It almost never matters what the record is, but they had a big game there, and now they jump in. They're number 7. They jumped up 3 spots. I'll pose this question to you guys. Do you think USC can make the playoff?
I think it's all going to depend on their defense. If their defense can improve and and stop some people, they'll have a chance. Because with Riley, you're going to have their offense has been looking good, but Lincoln Riley has never really had a team where he can get a defense going. So I think that's going to be the key. Or if they have a good season and are able to maybe try to make a push at the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I agree there too. That's a mistake for him is the defensive side of the ball. But I mean, USC looked pretty good on the defensive side against Stanford. I mean, I think he might have a little bit of a case for the playoffs. But I mean, USC is that prestigious school. It's got that history, but they haven't been in the limelight since they Bush and all them were there, and then they had that issue with Bush and his Heisman Trophy and all that stuff. So I mean, to me, I think Lincoln Riley was a good hire for him on the offensive side, but he has to show that he's got a defensive paralysis to get a defensive coordinator to run this defense. And that's going to be the issue coming up because he's still got a lot of tough games coming up in the Pac-12. I mean, he's still got to play UCLA. He still got to, try to run the gauntlet out of the Pac-12 and try. But then again, what's a mistake? The Pac-12 is the college that they always most likely leave out of the playoffs. Now, if it's extended when in 2004 to 2006 come, the earliest they can do the 12-man playoff team is in 8-man playoff team is in 2004. That's what they're trying to lean to, but they will have it by 2026. So the earliest they can play is 2024. So with the extended playoffs.
Are they on the extended playoffs? Or are they going to go to 8 teams and then go to 12, or are they just going to go straight to 12?
They're going straight to 12. The number 1 team, the number 2 team will have a bye. And then when they get ready to the issues they're trying to work out is where they play the games at. Do they allow the number 1 team when they get in that round from the bye week, do they allow them to play at their home stadium? Or do they play at a neutral site? But they are putting some tendencies in there that if it's raining and they want to play indoors, they can pick an indoor stadium to go to that venue. So,
yeah, they had a couple weeks ago. They had released some details coming out of the board approving the 12-team playoff, and one of those contingencies was the higher seed gets to essentially pick any last-minute changes to the venue if needed. But yeah, I think it was the top 4 teams get buys just based on how the numbers work out, because that would be 8 teams would still be able to kind of play. But I honestly think USC has a really good chance at making the playoff because Clemson in the ACC, can DJ and company bring that offense back? And he didn't really look good against Georgia Tech early in the season. USC, you mentioned that name brand, and they don't have a lot of strong games on their schedule, especially now since Notre Dame lost at home to Marshall out of complete nowhere. The only team now they have on their schedule that's ranked is at Utah on October 15th. That's a game circled on, I think, everybody's calendar in the Pac-12, because USC can run the gauntlet. Through 2 weeks, they have the 13th best offense in the nation, but you mentioned the defense. That's going to be their real strong point of emphasis for them, because they're top 70 in defense in college football through 2 weeks, and you only played Rice and Stanford so far. So those are games, especially moving forward. Fresno State has an offense that was kind of prepared to watch out for this coming season. Oregon State, not really much of a problem there. Arizona State gave Oklahoma State some trouble early on this weekend. That's always a game to watch out for too. But I think if they can run the table, especially if they're undefeated going into Utah, win that game, I think that game right there gets them in, assuming they run undefeated through the conference. But, all right, so let's one last thing. I completely forgot about this. I don't know how I could have forgotten about this topic. If I can get it up. There it goes. This guy, Scott Frost.
Already gone.
He gone.
Well, guess what? He might be gone, but there are talks that Nick Saban might be calling him to be the new offensive coordinator at Alabama after what happened in Texas.
Hey, it's very possible. I mean, he had some success at UCF, having that undefeated season. Should they have been in the playoffs? Should they have not? Doesn't matter. It's here. It's here and gone. But the big thing with Scott Frost here is fired after a 1-2 start to the season. Lost to Georgia Southern at home after, what was the stat we saw this morning, Ray? It was they were 242-0 after scoring over 30 points, and then they end up losing.
Yep.
Yeah, Scott Frost, not a good record at Nebraska, 16-31, second worst of Big Ten schools since his tenure started. Man, he had a $15 million buyout, and had Nebraska waited until October 1st, that buyout would have been cut in half down to $7.5 million. And they said, nope, we're not going to wait a couple weeks. We want you out the door now. So now the question mark is for Nebraska, a very proud program. Where do they go next for the head coaching vacancy?
We just have to see what the interim coach does, because he's in that run. Once the interim coach takes over, if he pulls out some wins and goes some of the, I think if he gets them to at least 8 wins, he might be the next head coach, because they don't want to change the continuity of them winning if they can get them on the winning track. But then again, I think Scott Frost made a mistake, and I think he went up too early in a Power 5 situation. I think he should have stayed at UCF probably about 3 or 4 more years, maybe get a little bit of continuity. I think what happened was he's former Nebraska. That was his dream job. He came up and they wanted him. And my thinking is, Nebraska thinks that when he was going undefeated at UCF, that was going to bring to Nebraska. But then again, you got to figure out too, you got a Power 5 against a small school in UCF, which is easier to manipulate to what you want to do at UCF than you can at Nebraska. And Damian said Sean Payton's going to go. I don't think Sean Payton's going to go back to a college team. I think he's waiting for another NFL job, even though he said he doesn't want an NFL job. I think he's waiting for that Dallas Cowboy job.
Yep. That's what I think will be with the Cowboys after they get rid of McCarthy, either during the season this year or at the end of the year.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy, if he goes down, that's the big name. Sean Payton getting connected to the Dallas Cowboys. I agree with you guys. I don't think Sean Payton's going to go backwards. He's never coached in college, to my knowledge, so I don't think that's going to be a move that he'd be willing to make, especially when he holds all the leverage, all the cards, because there will be teams in the NFL calling Sean Payton to come out of retirement. So I don't think he would go, not that college is beneath him, but when you can get NFL jobs and you've had success at the NFL level, why would you want to potentially harm that by going to college, and you got to recruit kids and all that? NFL is a much different beast. So I'm with you guys. I think Sean Payton's more likely to go to Dallas than he would be Nebraska.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, some other things here for college football this coming weekend. There's only a couple top 25 matchups this weekend. We already talked about BYU and Oregon. That happens on Saturday at 3:30. One of the other top 25 matchups, we kind of already talked about them. Texas A&M hosting number 13 Miami, the Hurricanes, at Kyle Field in College Station. Texas A&M is still favored by 5.5, even after their loss. Do you have any other games in the college football schedule this coming week that you guys are out paying attention to?
Yeah, number 22, Penn State and Auburn. That's going to be an intriguing matchup down in Auburn. Even though Auburn struggled against San Jose State, but they're playing in Auburn, tough place. Another tough place to play in the SEC is the SEC versus a Big Ten school. Everybody puts the SEC on the pedestal, and that's right there, and you're basing yourself off of Big Ten. Now you got Ron Franklin. Interesting there. Ron Franklin came out of Vanderbilt. That's the last time Vanderbilt had a good team, was when Franklin was the head coach. Now he's going back to the SEC with a Big Ten school. Can Ron Franklin leave Auburn with a win? That's going to be the question. And I'll get with more on that on Saturday on the College Breakdown at 9 p.m. with me and Dre breaking down all the games. So that's here on the All Sports All Place Network also. So
Absolutely.
shameless plug, but had to get it in.
College football breakdown Saturdays at 9 p.m. here on
9 a.m.
ASAP Network. 9 a.m.
We take it all the way to kickoff. We'll take it all the way to kickoff. We compete we're competing with the big boys. Game day, all that. So
you guys do a good job. I was watching it Saturday morning before the college football game, so I really enjoy listening to it. So keep up the good work.
Yeah, me and Dre, man, we have fun on that show. Yeah.
Who was probably your surprise win in the NFL? I didn't think the Giants would beat Tennessee. Not that I thought Tennessee was going to have a great year this year, but I didn't expect the Giants to come back and win that game.
I was surprised in the NFL.
Texans either, but
I was surprised in the NFL was how bad the Green Bay Packers look.
Yeah, they look terrible.
And I mean, to me, I don't know the situation with Adams when they traded him away. That left Aaron Rodgers was nothing really, because Lazard's injured. They only had that one wide receiver. Everybody else looked pitiful.
The running back had the most receiving yards.
Yeah. So it's just a time for Aaron Rodgers is going to look like he's human and start deteriorating, and then you're looking to see him retire pretty soon. I mean, he's getting up in age. He's set 4 years behind Brett Favre.
Absolutely. I got a chance to watch the first half of that game before we went live with our weekly wrap-up show on Sundays. Something I talked about in previous segments is Minnesota is going to be a problem in the NFC North. And I think this year, the Packers losing Devontae Adams, they basically told Aaron Rodgers, hey, you've been great, NFL MVP. We're going to take away all your weapons. And, we just don't want to pay him. It's essentially what they told him is they don't want to pay Devontae Adams. They didn't want to commit to him long-term because they don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to be long-term. Is he going to retire at some point? How's that going to look? So now I think this season, you're really going to see Aaron Rodgers and company come back down to earth in Green Bay. And this is a prime opportunity for Minnesota. I know Damian was talking with us on Sunday evening about Kirk Cousins not looking all that good, but he looked pretty damn good to me. Justin Jefferson had a hell of a game as well. Minnesota looks like the team to beat in the NFC North, and I think that's probably, I wouldn't say that's my biggest surprise. I'm with you, Chris. I think the Giants pulling off an upset against the Titans was one of the biggest upsets already in the year, and we're only in week one.
Yeah. I mean, we had a lot of teams that were supposed to be in playoff contentions. It all went down, like Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. The Titans went down.
Bengals.
The Bengals went down to the Steelers. I mean, Damian said Steelers beating the Bengals was definitely shocking. I don't think it was a shock. I think Pittsburgh has that defense, and they had the thing is about the offense. The thing is about the quarterback position. He did enough to win the game. I mean, that's just point blank. And the Steelers defense did what they needed to do to shut down Burrows, who had 3 interceptions in that ball game. Made him look human. Made Chase Young look human too. I mean, he didn't really go off either. And then Jefferson went off with 184 yards receiving in the game. Yep. And I mean, people give knocks on Kirk Cousins that he can't win games, but Kirk Cousins is a better game manager at certain things. If he goes out there and plays where he knows how to play his strength, and not go out there and try to be a hero, sometimes he go out there and try to be. If he goes out to be Kirk Cousins, not being Tom Brady type deal, and trying to make himself be up that thing, and I think the head coach at Minnesota is now getting into his head. I think if Minnesota's defense is up to the par, I think if their offense can play like what they're doing, and if they can't, if they got to have somebody else step up besides Jefferson at the other wide receiver spot too, because now you're gonna have teams going to start double teaming him. So coming down
to step back up. on
Yep.
they get Thielen to step back up on the other side, their offense is going to be real scary.
Absolutely.
And back to
They
that
got
real quick, back to the Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Joe Burrow, if you look in his career, he struggled. He has struggled against Pittsburgh, that Pittsburgh defense. So that really didn't surprise me a whole lot. And like you said, Trubisky played well enough to win the game.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That probably was the best scenario for them to go out and get Trubisky, because that's the thing. They were pulling out some trick plays. They had Chase Claypool on jet sweeps, and he led the team in carries, and he led the team in carries, yards, and as a wide receiver. So they're opening up the playbook more. But Trubisky's that kind of guy for a Mike Tomlin offense, that he doesn't need to do what Kirk Cousins did. He doesn't need to do what Pat Mahomes can do. He just needs to go out and manage the game and not lose the game. And I think that's a really good pairing, having Trubisky in Pittsburgh, and now the Pittsburgh Steelers 1-0. I was really, really hoping that we didn't have two ties, let alone just the one tie this week. Ties are awful. NFL, do better. Get rid of ties.
Yeah, and on another note too, watching that Pittsburgh and Bengal game, it kind of reminded me of the Baltimore year when they had Trent Dilfer at quarterback and the defense was carrying that team. If Trubisky can do what he needs to do and be game manager, not turn the ball over, I think the Steelers will have a better season with people going under the radar than what they think. Because Mike Tomlin they said this year is supposed to be the year that Mike Tomlin goes under 500 in a season. But they came off with a good start. The defense played good. And you can't give out their defense is going to be the stellar. And I would kind of like to see them play what the Baltimore did when they had Trent Dilfer. Trent Dilfer was a game manager. He didn't turn the ball over. He had the offense moving to certain points, and they played field position all season long. And what happened? They won the Super Bowl by playing that field position because the defense was that good.
Yeah, Dilfer might not win the game for you, but he wasn't going to lose the game for you by making that huge mistake.
Right.
That's all they need Trubisky to do. Don't make stupid turnovers. Just be smart, take care of the ball, and let the defense carry you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we were talking about your team, the Jaguars and the Commanders. Kind of give a little your thoughts about how you think the Jaguars played this weekend and what you expect from them this upcoming week.
Well, to me, we got Indianapolis coming up. We got Chris's team coming up here in Jacksonville. We know the last time they played, they had Carson Wentz. Everybody's saying that Carson Wentz was the thing that was the problem at Indianapolis. They went out and got Matt Ryan, and all the numbers they had, Colts had 179 yards rushing with Jonathan. They had 21 yards with Pittman. All these players getting over 100 yards, and they only can manage up 20 points. And they finished with a tie. But then the Jaguars, the thing that tested me with the Jaguars, when the Jaguars got down to 14-3, last year they would have folded. Point blank. They wouldn't come back out. They looked like they didn't want to play, or they got blown out in the second half. When they came back this time under Doug Peterson, they came back to play. They took the lead. They had the lead all the way up to a minute and 46 seconds left in that game. But the thing is, the Jaguars left almost 21 points on the field. They made one field goal. They missed one field goal. They went on 4th and 5 in the red zone. And I told everybody on the Jag Nation, what I told everybody on Friday was that they had to win the efficiency on third down. They did not do that. The defense allowed the Washington Commanders 70% of the time they got in third down, they picked up the first down. Jaguar was 3-12. Awful on third down efficiencies. Red zone, we were 2-5. They were 2-2. We were under 500 in the red zone. And we had 3 turnovers that we should have capitalized and turned into points. Well, we didn't. So, we had a few drops. But the last play of the game, what really made me mad was, I rewatched about 3 or 4 times, was Campbell not diving the football, trying to break up the pass. He allowed him to catch it, and he was right there. All he had to do was put his hands out or dive for it. He didn't play the ball correctly. And that's why we end up losing. And we had offsides on defense trying to get the ball back to get him the first down to clinch the game. So, but overall, I like the attitude of the team. I like the way they got to clean up some mistakes. The offensive line's got to stop getting more pressure, and they got to show up. Trevor Lawrence is, his split. His going from shotgun formation. He's already 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He's taken another 3 or 4, maybe 5 more steps. He's about 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage when he throws the ball. They just got to show up his stuff. You got to get the ball out quicker for him. Kirk did pretty good. He had over 100 yards, 6 receptions for 117 yards. The running backs, we started, and I think they should have kept the running game going a little bit more instead of putting it in Trevor Lawrence's hand to win the game. So.
Yeah, Jacksonville's got Indianapolis this next week, and the Commanders have the Lions next week. But Chris, I know you host Horseshoe Talk on here on the ASAP Network as well, and you guys did have that tie. But I think one of the biggest question marks that I have for the Colts, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. The Colts went up 3-0 and then ended up being down 20-3 before they finally started scoring in the fourth quarter. I mean, on the stat sheet, it looks like Ray said, they should have dominated. What did you guys see? What did you see in that game, and what, Indy's got to fix moving into week 2?
Oh yeah, they should have dominated. You have 517 total yards to only 299 for Houston, and a lot of it is some of it's coaching decisions. I think we got that first field goal, then we get down there trying to get. We're on a 2-yard line. And you get 4th and 2, and instead of taking the 3 points in the first quarter of a game, we pass up those 3 points, which Reich's bad about passing up points. Then, so that was 3 you left on the board. Then you miss a field goal. Then you drop 2 touchdown passes in the end zone. That rookie wide receiver Pierce was wide open, perfect pass at his hands and just dropped it. Then Doolin drops another one. So it was just basically mistakes that little mistakes that killed the Colts. Where if you just convert that 20 points right there, you win the game comfortably. But Reich, to me, a lot of times, and I've always been the Frank Reich guy, but now I'm starting to go the other way. He manages the game like he's an offensive coordinator and not a head coach. I don't know if he needs to let somebody else call the plays or what, but a lot of times when he makes decisions, it's like, dude, you're not just the offensive coordinator. You're the head coach of this team. And I just think we sometimes he gets too aggressive in moments you shouldn't. When you're in the first 5 minutes of the game, take the damn 3 points. Get them 3 points can come back to haunt you. And they did. And then we drop a couple touchdown passes. And then in the third quarter, our defense just disappeared and let Jacksonville get out that lead. And then finally in the fourth quarter, the offense woke up a little bit. But the receiving core is the big question for me with the Colts. They didn't do nothing to improve it. And it hurt us yesterday. Like I said, two wide open drops in the end zone that really turned the game around.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a big question mark for the Colts. I would think I know they were one of my favorites in the AFC South this coming year, based on kind of what the progression should be. And, with Matt Ryan, was the problem Matt Ryan, or was the problem Carson Wentz? And it looks like that, that play calling and those decision making in crunch time, that really affects whether you get wins and losses. And that tie could end up being a deciding factor in whether the Colts are in the hunt for the division, in the hunt for the playoffs, and those are games that, you could always look back and say, well, we should have done this, should have done that. But in the moment, you mentioned Frank Reich making some decisions that, ended up coming back to haunt the Colts.
Yeah, they got to get turned around quick, because if I remember correctly, 4 or 5 of their first 7 games are division games, and you can't afford to lose 3 or 4 division games, especially right out to kick off the season. Now they have Jacksonville, and Jacksonville isn't no slouch. That's if Colts play especially if Colts play like they did yesterday, I think that's going to be a good game. And Colts that struggle in Jacksonville. They ain't like Colts go to Jacksonville and win a lot of games.
I think the only time the Colts really were good in Jacksonville is when they had Phillip Rivers, because Phillip Rivers is a Jacksonville killer. Even with San Diego and LA, he killed the Jaguars, and I think that's kind of what he did with Indianapolis. But then again, you come down here like last year. They had Carson Wentz. They come down here. Jaguars hadn't looked good all season long to the Colts game.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Something about the Colts that brings it the best in the Jaguars. I can't figure out what it is, what it takes. But then again, this could help the Jaguars too. To me, I think the Jaguars had a couple things they had to get suited up here. They got to get more pass rush on the quarterback. They can't let Matt Ryan sit back there and pick you apart, because he will pick you apart if you let him have time. I don't care what kind of receiving core you got. We got to figure out how to stop Pittman. Pittman's one of the best, part of the better wide receiver for the Colts. We got to figure out how to roll the coverage to him and have somebody else try to beat us. We got Jonathan Taylor, who had tremendous games all the way up to that last Jaguar game, kind of held him in check. So, I mean, we got one of the best run defense guys out there from the Falcons last year to stop in the middle of the run. I mean, the Commanders only had 85 yards rushing the whole game. I mean, well, our problem is stopping the pass. That's the problem of the Jaguars defense, is stopping the pass. Even though we had 2 interceptions and 1 fumble, I mean, that's been a long time since the Jaguars had 3 turnovers in a game like that.
I haven't seen any of it yet. How did Trevor Lawrence look yesterday? With Doug Peterson with him.
He looked a little bit, but in times that the offensive line got pressured most of the day. He was on the run most of the time. He still looked inconsistencies on some of the stuff that he needs to do. He's trying to go deep more than he is trying to take what the defense gives. Because on the play that he went deep on that turnover, the interception, he had Say Jones wide open in the middle of the field. He could have took that because we still had plenty of time. We still had 3 timeouts on our disposal. And it's just stuff that he's looking at, he's missing, but it's good teaching tools, because he's going to be in the film session today, and Doug Peterson will be in his ears, because that's the way Doug Peterson is. That's the way he made Carson Wentz look when he was with Philadelphia. He was always in his ears. He said, "This is what you did wrong. This is what you need to do." And on the opposite end of Frank Wright is Doug Peterson doesn't call the plays. He has an offensive coordinator that calls the play, but he gives his inputs like a head coach is supposed to do. And Frank Wright will give up the play calling. And like you said, because some of the games like last year in Jacksonville, I could see his play calling from the stands, and I'm calling the plays on the Indianapolis Colts side. I'm telling my buddy beside me, I said, "Hey, they're about to run the ball." He said, "How you know that? They didn't 4 wide receiver." Because he's going to run the ball right here. Sure enough, handed the ball to Taylor, and he didn't get but like 2 or 3 yards, because his plays are predictable. He needs to have somebody call the plays and have him put his input in. It'll be better, because how many times have you seen people call plays that really work as a head coach? Not very much. I mean, Sean Payton is the exception. He's part of the exception to the point, because he has the way he calls the plays is he'll have somebody tell him from upstairs, "Hey, you need to call this play, blah, blah, blah." And sometimes he'll take the input and listen to it. Frank Wright won't do that.
No,
I don't care what you can say.
He's running the show no matter what, and it's a lot. I think it's a detriment to the team sometimes.
Yeah, you'd mentioned the Colts upcoming schedule. We talked about Jacksonville, then they've got Kansas City, Tennessee, Denver, and then Jacksonville again in the next couple weeks. So a couple of divisional games. That's really going to be. I think that's going to be a big separator for the AFC South over the next couple weeks. With all those divisional games, that's going to be. I think it's going to be, especially based on the first week, a very tough division, as it normally is. You're going to have some surprises. Is Tennessee kind of falling off, losing to the Giants? Are they? Derrick Henry didn't get he got a decent amount of touches. I think he had 20 carries, but less than 100 yards. So when you can sell out, and Derrick Henry is like the only weapon that they have now on offense, you can sell out to the run. And I think that's going to be a key indicator for the rest of the division for sure in the AFC South. Damian had a question here about the Saints and the Falcons. Did anyone expect a close game? Yeah, because it's a division game. I think that's why it is the way it is in the NFC South. That's a big. Their division games are always hard. I'm not expecting a whole lot from the Falcons this year. So the fact that they scored 13 points in the second quarter and they were up 16-7 at halftime, that was a bit of a surprise. But the fact that the Saints came out in the fourth quarter, 17 straight points to take the lead and the win, I think that that's kind of what we all expected from the Saints this year. Not expecting a whole lot from the Falcons, but I don't know. Ray, do you got any thoughts on that game? I didn't get a chance to watch a whole lot of it.
I mean, to me though, it's teaching him. I mean, they're using him as a weapon type deal. The quarterback situation is still unsettled. Really, Winston going to be the dude? Is Taysom Hill going to be the dude? This is short along the lines where without Drew Brees there, I mean, no situation with the quarterbacks. This is a whole different team. It's going to take a team effort for the Saints to win, like they did against Atlanta. To me, Atlanta is still shaky too because of the quarterback situation there. I mean, are they going to be the team? Are they going to be a team that can compete with Tampa? I mean, the way Tampa's defense looked, I mean, because you got Tom Brady who can engineer the offense, but then your defense is stepping up too. So, I mean, Tampa's going to be the hardest team to beat in that NFC South. I mean, Carolina lost by 2 points to Cleveland, and the penalties gave up that game against Cleveland. But Atlanta, I think Atlanta and Saints have always been playing. They play back and forth to each other's strength. I think they get down to teams together. I think the Saints plays to their level of competition sometimes. If you think you're going on paper, the Saints look better than they did the Falcons, but then again, teams sometimes play down to that competition that you're playing.
Yeah, and I think to that point, Damian, Atlanta Falcons, they outgained the Saints 416 to 385. They had 200 yards rushing and 200 yards passing. They utilized Marcus Mariota as a runner just about as much as they utilized him as a passer. So that's a big. I think that's going to be a big key for Atlanta moving forward this year, because you are in a bit of transition. You got to find your franchise quarterback. Cordero Patterson completely now moved to a running back from his normal wide receiver spot. They used him. He had 22 carries for 120 yards. He's just a dynamic type player. Drake London had 5 catches for 74 yards and 7 targets. So I think Atlanta's got some hope, but this year, like if they can keep games close like this for majority of the season, I think you're gonna have a lot of hope in Atlanta that they will be good again. But the Saints, like you said, on paper, the Saints should have won this game fairly easily. But as we see with a lot of divisional games, they usually come down to the fourth quarter, to the last few drives, and we saw that. Atlanta got a lot of momentum in the first half, and then that's the thing is, in Atlanta you have to play 4 quarters. You can't just stop at 3.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if you look at the total yards, Saints had 385, Atlanta had 416. Yep. But the key point is the Saints won the turnover battle 2-1. And then Atlanta had way many first down, 26-18. But you got to give your hats off for the Saints. They battled back and they played good and they won the game. So
yeah, absolutely. Some positive takeaways to look at for the Falcons. They almost dominated the time of possession, 33 minutes to 26. You mentioned the first downs. Third down conversion could probably be better for both the Falcons and the Saints. Not very good there, but the penalties for each team kind of really shot themselves in the foot. Both had 8 penalties apiece. So, you look at that, the red zone efficiency, that's something I think what won the Saints the game. They were in the red zone 3 times. They scored all 3 times. That definitely helped their comeback bid and keep them in the hunt for the NFC South. Can we say Baker sucks after losing his revenge game? I think it's hilarious that he came out and said, no, this wasn't a revenge game, when it definitely was. But if you're the Panthers, Darnold and Baker, neither one of them is probably going to win you a ton. And if if you are a Panthers fan, I know you're from Carolina, Ray. Christian McCaffrey didn't do a whole lot on paper, and what do you? I don't know. I really don't know where to go if I'm a Panthers fan or the front office, because the defense was supposed to be something of a strong suit for them this year, and they got carved up on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the situation here in Carolina, is Baker Mayfield outplayed Jacoby Brissett. He outplayed him. He had 235 yards. Cleveland only had 100, but then the running game had over 39 carries for 217 yards. The Panthers supposed to have one of the second best running backs in the league in McCaffrey. He only had 10 carries for 33 yards. So that's an average of probably maybe about two carries, 1.5 carry average per yard. So I mean the Carolinas. I knew the Carolina offensive line is going to be the weakest part of their team. They have to get the offensive line more production out of that to get some more running lanes for that, or we can see McCaffrey injured again. I mean, McCaffrey's been injured prone, his whole career. But what stood out to me too was that penalties killed Carolina in this ball game. That's because they had penalties at the wrong time on drives, called drive killers. Those penalties will kill you in a heartbeat. And I think that's what did this team in. I mean, they played good. I mean, they only lost by 2 points. So, I mean, Baker did keep them in the game. Because that's the only thing they had. They only had 19 carries for 54 yards rushing. So, I mean, Carolina wants to be a balanced team, and you got to show that in the running game and the thing. I mean, they weren't even balanced. None of these teams were balanced. I mean, you knew they would go run the ball because they ran the ball 39 times. You know they're running the ball. They only passed for 34 times. He only had 34 attempts, but he only completed 18 of them. So he was way below. His QBR, Jacoby Brissett's QBR was 38.1 in that game.
Yeah, that's
low.
the game. If you can have Jacoby Brissett play that mediocre and still win the game, I think that bodes well for Cleveland leading into just waiting until Deshaun Watson comes back. But escaping Carolina with a win, starting off the season 1-0, I think that's something to definitely kind of hang your hat on, is the fact that, well, we didn't play very well outside of allowing Nick Chubb to just run wild.
Yeah.
And Kareem Hunt had a touchdown on the ground as well. So if you're the Browns, you got to be at least pleased the fact that you got the win, even though the passing game didn't really perform very well. And if you're Carolina, okay, Baker's there, but on offensively, they had five fumbles in this game. They didn't lose any, but they had 5 fumbles in this game. You couldn't get the run game going. You only attempted 19 carries. You had under 3 yards a carry on the game. You mentioned penalties. Third down conversions did not go well. They were only 4 of 11 there. But the bright spot is the fact that Baker still had a halfway decent game. Robbie Anderson got over 100 yards. But they really got to shore up that run defense and the run game on offense. If they can shore those things up, I think the Panthers will be able to compete more in games and be able to actually win some games.
Yeah, but also I think in this game too, the Panthers did show how you could beat Cleveland. Because if you look at the passing game, People is the only one they had was 6 receptions, 60 yards. These wide receivers for Cleveland does not scare me. I would stack that box on Cleveland all day long and have their wide receivers try to beat me. The wide receivers didn't. Kareem Hunt had 4 receptions for 24 yards. A running back. He was the second leading reception on the thing, not a wide receiver. Kareem Hunt was behind Peoples.
Yeah,
the team only caught 18 passes for 147 yards, 1 touchdown, and the longest they had, they were targeted 30 times. The longest they had was 24 yards as a team.
Yeah, the thing that would scare me for the Cleveland Browns is Peoples-Jones had 11 targets and only 6 catches, and Amari Cooper had only 6 targets and only 3 catches. So he didn't have himself a good game. they used Kareem Hunt pretty well, both in the running game and the passing game. But if you're the Browns, you're basically just hoping you can tread water in the AFC until Deshaun Watson comes back, and then maybe they can kind of open up the offense a little bit more.
They're gonna have to do something because right now they're playing in that division with the Bengals, the Steelers, the Ravens. The Steelers and Ravens look good, especially on the defensive side.
Yeah, Steelers.
You know,
Ravens
Lamar Jackson's gonna be Lamar Jackson. You know, the knock on him coming out of college. Yes, I saw the college when he played the bowl game here in Jacksonville. We were sitting in the end zone, and we watched him throw like 4 or 5 interceptions in the end zone. I mean, coming out of college. So, he's a great runner, but he's got to get more efficiency on the passing. He had like over 213 yards passing, and he had one deep bomb that looked like he was an accurate quarterback because that ball dropped right in perfectly in front of him. The receiver, came on, ran underneath and caught it. So, I mean, Cleveland's going to be hard because 11 games Sean Watson's out for 11 games. So, and that's a lot between now and that 11 games. You got 10 more games now. You got that one win. Now you got to go to the next game and hope you can do better at the passing game because now teams are going to look at the Carolina game and say, hey, they ran the ball 39 times. Let's stack the line and let receivers beat us. Until the receivers can show that they can beat a team in the NFL, the coordinator is going to stack that box and keep that run, try to keep that run. If they can't get a running game going and they can't get a passing game going, Cleveland's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think they'll be in a lot of trouble if they can't shore those things up. But kind of changing focus here to the Monday night game. We still got one more game in this exciting week 1 of the NFL. Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. Russell Wilson making his first appearance in Seattle. This game kicks off at 8:15 on ABC. Seattle is getting 6.5 points in Denver's favored money line -305. What are you expecting from this game out of Denver and Seattle?
The first thing is, will the Seattle crowd boo him or cheer or give him a standing ovation? That's the first thing. Now, the next question is, this will be the first time we see Seattle without Russell Wilson. This is the first time we see Russell Wilson without Seattle. Denver has a lot of pieces in the book. They didn't have a quarterback last year. They still have a lot of pieces. They got a good running back, a rookie running back last year out of North Carolina. He showed up in the later ends of the season. They still got that. They still got a good wide receiver core they can use. The problem is Seattle has lost. Pete Carroll and Seattle has lost a lot of stuff, a lot of defense, a lot of offense. What is Geno Smith going to do in this ballgame? That's going to be the question. He's replacing Wilson.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll be a mixed bag as far as Russell Wilson's concerned. You're going to probably hear some boos. You're probably going to hear some cheers. Obviously, what he did in Seattle is kind of unmatched from the previous quarterbacks they've had in franchise history. But the way that he left wasn't very clean either. So I think you're going to see a mixed bag from there. But as far as the game on the field, it's probably going to be a close game because you're going to have a few things. It's the first game of the season. It'll probably end up being, I think, maybe a 2-score game, but I think Denver's going to take care of business. I don't think Seattle's very good. You mentioned that they lost a lot on defense. They don't have really a running game to speak of. You got a lot of unknowns in the running game. And the big question mark, you mentioned Geno Smith. What's he going to do? I think he's going to throw a couple of picks. Is what I think is going to happen.
I mean, Denver's defense is better than Seattle's defense, and they're going to get pressure on the quarterback. And we know how Geno Smith is with pressure on the quarterback. He throws inaccurate, and I mean, Russell Wilson could go out because this showed that, hey, look, you know, I'm Russell Wilson. I mean, I seen the guy play at NC State when he played at North Carolina State. He was unbelievable there. Then he went. The little turmoil at NC State that he wanted to play baseball too. The NC State didn't want to let him play baseball because the head coach O'Brien was there. So he went out and went up to Wisconsin. He had a good career up in Wisconsin. I mean, the guy's a winner. I mean, but the question is, Seattle is now. They think they know his weakness, but they have nobody that can stop his weakness. That's the problem. And Pete Carroll, this could be the last season of Pete Carroll too in Seattle.
You think so?
It could be. If he don't have a good year, I think he's gone. He's getting up in age too.
Yeah, it could be time for changing of the guard there, especially if, like you mentioned, Seattle doesn't have a good season. I remember from last year, Denver, the conversation was they have good pieces everywhere. They're just a quarterback away. Denver's a quarterback away. So what do they do in the offseason? They got their quarterback. Yep. I know Damian said he's going to throw for 5 touchdowns. I don't know about 5 touchdowns, but I bet you that offensive playbook opens up a little bit this week because they want Russ to get 5 touchdowns. But I think Russ is going to perform well in front of that crowd. It's going to be a little bit different knowing how loud they can get for opposing quarterbacks. So I don't know if that might have a little bit of miscommunication issues on their offense, but I think the Broncos will take care of business tonight. If I'm a betting man, I would probably take the Denver to cover the 6.5. It might only be a 7 to 10 point game for Denver, but I think they can cover. I just don't think Seattle's that good.
But then again, you talk about the crowd could be a factor. Russell Wilson knows the crowd. So guess what? They probably implemented a silent count, and they probably boosted up the sound system in their practice facility to try to simulate the crowd. And the only way you can simulate a crowd like that is have a recording of the Seattle crowd and boost that thing all the way up. So I think Russell Wilson knows a little bit about that crowd. I think he knows how to deteriorate. But the question is, can the arrest his teammate deteriorate that and not call some stupid penalty like false starts at a key situation? You're on the goal line, you get a false start. You back them up 5 yards. That could kill a drive. We know different penalties at different situations kill drives. But again, can the Denver Broncos, we've always seen it. They always said they're a quarterback away. And last year they were a quarterback away. Is it the same thing this year? Now they got the quarterback. Now can everybody else step up, and can Russell Wilson make them step up? That's going to be the question.
Damian saying Geno is going to be leaving out that game like AB did in Tampa. That I wouldn't go that far, but I think it's going to be one of those types of games for Seattle. Well, really all season. I think that's kind of what they're set up for right now. Is you don't really have a quarterback. You got a lot of questions at the running back position. Yeah, you've got DK Metcalf and Lockett at wide receiver, Noah Fant at tight end, but there's a lot of holes on this Seattle team, and I think that's going to be exposed tonight on Monday Night Football, 8:15 Eastern on ABC. But so coming up this week, Ray, I know you've got Jags Nation. Tell everybody when you can find Jags Nation on ASAP Network.
Jag Nation, it's going to be on Wednesday, moved to Friday. We have a 2-hour slot on Friday from 7 to 9, and then we do the highlights of the game, talk about the Jaguar games on Sunday from 9:30 to 11 o'clock. You can also catch my wrestling hour on the All Sports All Plays on Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And also you can catch me on College Breakdown on Saturdays every morning from 9 a.m., taking you right up to kickoff on the All Sports All Plays Network. And you can also find out on Roku TV on the All Sports All Plays Network also. So,
absolutely. You can find us on all those different platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Roku, and much more. But if you want to find out more information about any of the shows here on ASAP Network, you got to go ahead and follow the network first and foremost on Facebook at All Sports All Plays, on Twitter at ASAP Network 1, on Twitch at ASAP Network, and of course on YouTube. Just search ASAP Sports Network. Later on today, we've got the Afternoon Blitz at 1 p.m. Eastern, Easy Money at 3 p.m. Eastern, and then Horseshoe Talk is tonight, Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern on All Sports All Plays Network. Later, I'll be gone the rest of the week. Ray and company will be rocking with you Tuesday through Friday. So check that out here. ASAP in the morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. For Ray, I am Craig. Have a great rest of your Monday, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Peace out.
All Sports All Plays. Yeah. All Sports All Plays. All Sports All Plays. 365 365, we making a plays. We talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.